So what happens when Iran announces that they have now a nuclear weapons capability? Well, there are arguably three options. The first is military. You could launch an all-out attack to effect regime change. But ladies and gentlemen, that would be a difficult task. Another option, I suppose, would be to do nothing. America could potentially, a containment will work here. But I suggest to you that what you would see instead is a regional proliferation of nuclear weapons. I do not believe that Saudi Arabia or Turkey, potentially even Egypt, would stand by, with Iran being the only country in the region to possess a nuclear capability. There is perhaps out there a third option, and that is change from within. And that's the change that Madame Rajvi proposes. My concern is that there may not be time, that there needs to be a sense of urgency if this potential catastrophe is to be avoided, and I'm just not sure that time is on our side. A word, if I can, on the MEK. I first encountered the MEK when I was a field commander in Iraq in 2004. I was assigned with my Marines to the Anbar province, and I was told shortly after we arrived that there was this terrorist organization sitting in the middle of our zone of responsibility. I can tell you I was not pleased, but I can also tell you that in very rapid order, as my commanders met with these people, discussed with them who they were, what their requirements were, and what their intentions were, they came back to me and said, these people are not terrorists. I met with them later, and I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, those people that we dealt with in 2004 were no more terrorists than this panel is here today. My conscience, though, still bothers me, because I was part of that decision in 2003 to decide to allow Iraqis to put their AK-47 in the closet, but to tell the MEK, the people of the camps, at that point several camps in Iraq, that they could not have weapons. We said to them, we will protect you. History has proven us wrong. As Commandant, I sent Marines to Camp اشرف to guard the people there. After they were in place, I visited. What I found was people just like you, people who opened their homes and their hearts to discussion, people who wanted to help us as we went about protecting them. Folks, I have looked closely at the issue of delisting, and I think perhaps I differ from some of our dais today in that I am fairly optimistic that delisting will happen, and I believe it will happen soon. I hope. The facts are the UK, the EU, even our US courts have decided that listing them makes no sense, and have encouraged our government to follow that lead. Iranian Americans, some of whom are here today, are doing a wonderful job in our country keeping the momentum and keeping the whole concept in the eyes of our decision makers. As I got ready to fly here to Brussels, I turned on our most popular news channel in the United States. And there was Governor Ridge, and there was a Secretary General conducting a television interview on the subject. When I arrived here, I had email from at least two of my friends in New York City who had seen a full-page ad in the New York Times that essentially was an open letter to our president saying much of what Governor Ridge said to you in his comments. They have marshaled an impressive list of Americans who have been in government service, state or federal government service, only some of whom are here today. And some 94 senators and congressmen have co-signed, not just lent support, but have co-signed a compelling letter to the Secretary of State to delist. Last Last and not least, and Governor Dean said it, ladies and gentlemen, in 1 month it becomes an election year in our country. And no American president wants to see our values tarnished, if not dashed, such as we saw in the April massacre, and no president wants to go into an election with blood on his hands. So, Governor Dean, sir, you are the closest thing I know to someone with influence into that thought process. I encourage you to make the necessary connections and calls to try to ensure that the right thing happens. So what happens after delisting? Well, I think several things need to happen. There needs to continue, I believe, to be protection of the people of Arishaf. There needs to be what we call blue helmets from the United Nations on deck there to make sure there is no retribution for what may have been decided. The United States country team in Iraq needs to very much change their rhetoric, both military and civilian, with a new thought process now that these people are no longer on a list of terrorists, and they need to ensure that President Maliki and his organization do not, again, in some way act poorly. We need to negotiate what's best for the people of Arishaf. Do they want to stay there? Do they want to go elsewhere? What is in their best interest and their quality of life? And we need to have that conversation with them. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the Iraqi government is not a monolith. President Maliki needs to have pressure from within, because there are a number of people that I know in Iraq who are not the least bit happy that he is dancing at the end of the strings of people that are pulling those strings in the nation of Iran. And he also needs to understand that he may still be charged for violations that occurred in April. He certainly will be charged if other violations and loss of human life should follow. In closing, I return to this thought process of storm clouds on the horizon. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my conviction that if we are to avoid war, the death and the destruction, the additional horsemen of the apocalypse that would accompany such a thing, we need an Iran that does not seek nuclear weapons. We need an Iran that does not support international terrorism. And we need an Iran that does not murder its people on the streets. What we do need is an Iran that recognizes individual freedoms, that allows for representative government, and that will have the full intent to join with its friends and allies in the region. What we need is an Iran that's envisioned by the tenets of Madame Rajavi.